Lovely. Okay, so blankets and cushions down near where you're going to be laid down for this session, they might come in handy. And then come on up onto your feet. And this theme kind of follows on from class last week, which was all about restoring a comfortable back. And we're making our way up to the top of our back to release any stiffness or tension that builds up around our neck. So often our neck, and you might have experienced yourself, can sometimes get a little bit stuck. Sometimes we might wake up and think, oh, I've slept funny on my neck. And it can be really uncomfortable, can't it? If we've got tension in our neck to the point where it just feels incredibly stuck, it's amazing how painful and uncomfortable this can be. And we want to be able to keep moving our head throughout our life comfortably and freely. There's so much about our comfort and the way we live that depends on our ability to move our head freely, to direct our gaze, our hearing. So, a lot about safety and feeling secure comes from being able to move our head comfortably. Never mind looking around, checking your blind spot in a car, crossing the road, any number of things. So, we're going to spend a little bit of focus on this area. And what's really interesting about tension around our neck that can make a lot of noise is that often the what's causing that tension and that restriction in movement around the neck is actually taking place through our center. So the less mobile we get through our center, the more effort goes into our neck to turn our head. If this moves less, this has to work harder, essentially. So if we can keep this supple and moving, this doesn't have to work as hard. So we're going to begin in standing. So bring yourself up into an easy, comfortable way of standing this morning, whatever feels normal for you. Letting your arms hang, letting the weight settle down through your feet. And you might want to just take a few sighs or do a little wriggle just to settle into that spot. And to check in with our start point, we'll explore this in a way that isn't about just how far can we turn our head, but exploring the detail of it and how far can we turn our head before we have to kind of begin putting our foot down on the accelerator to use more energy to push or turn it. So we're really interested in exploring where the free, easy range of turning is. And that will no doubt be different to how far you can actually turn your head. So just beginning, before we even start to move, and to focus on the feel, to focus on the felt sense, you might want to close your eyes or soften your gaze. And could you begin to direct your awareness to your neck? So wherever you're focused on right now, could you begin to just guide it towards your neck? And are there any obvious or clear sensations around your neck? Does your awareness seem to land very willingly on one side? And considering the sides of your neck, thinking from that area from your ears all the way down either side until it flows out to the top of your shoulders. Notice if there is a different awareness or there are different sensations between the left and right side. You might feel that one is clearer or more obvious to you. And does one side of your neck feel somehow more spacious or more cramped? And then exploring this in a kind of lazy way. You're not trying to push your head to a certain point. could you begin to tip one of your ears to the same side shoulder? So just letting it tip over, like the weight of your head is just letting it tip. And notice how far it goes comfortably before you'd have to override anything or use more effort. And then softly bring your head back to center. And we're going to stay with moving to this same side. So letting your ear tip towards the shoulder. And the side you're tipping to, can you sense a shortening through that side of your neck? Can you feel how it gets shorter and a little less spacious? And then open out that side. Can you feel the length return to bring your head back to center? And exploring that one more time, could you notice how close your ear goes towards your shoulder? The aim isn't to meet the shoulder, but just noticing how far does it tip freely and how much free and comfortable lengthening is through the other side of your neck. Does it feel like it's restricting or pulling you back? Or does it release and open freely? And then bring your head back to center. And then let's explore the other way. So could you now tip your other ear to the same side shoulder? And does that feel like the same experience? Does it tip the same distance? Is the level of comfort the same? Bringing your head back to center. And as you tip again to this second side, just letting your ear just drop towards the shoulder, can you feel a shortening through that side of your neck? Does it shorten as much? Is the sensation of this side shortening the same as the first? And then can you feel the length and space return as your head comes back to center? And then go ahead and explore that one more time. And how freely and softly does the other side of your neck lengthen? Does it have more of a restriction to it? And then releasing back to center. So notice if there were differences either in the feel or the range of movement between left and right. And thinking about how our bones, so in this case, our head, our skull, our bones can only go where the muscles allow them to go. So if there is a different point at which your head tips one way than the other, then we know that the muscles through left and right are functioning and holding slightly differently. And then we're just going to explore one more movement with our head here in standing. So imagine someone is stood to the side of you. Could you turn your head to look at them? And notice how far you can turn freely without pushing, forcing. Notice which side you turn to. Was it the side that your head tipped more freely? And then come back to center and compare that to look the other way. Imagine someone else is stood on the other side of you. You want to turn to look at them. Do you see more of them or less? And then go ahead and just explore that once or twice more to each side, listening to the detail of differences. They might be really obvious or very subtle. And then when you've explored that and you are back at center, and you've got some information about where your start point is for easy range of movements. We've done a little tip side to side and a turning of the head. Come and lay yourself down onto your back and lay your arms and legs, however is helpful to feel comfortable. And just as you did in standing, give yourself time and a moment to settle onto the floor, meet the ground. And as you begin to settle, start to notice which parts of the back of you are meeting the ground. There might be some parts that stand out really clearly and obviously to you. Parts where you might feel heavier. And in those head explorations in standing, if there was a different range of easy movement between left and right, do you sense any differences in how your left and right side are meeting the ground here? So is there a different imprint through the right side of your back from shoulders to hips compared with the left? And then could you bring awareness to where the back of your head is meeting the ground? If you had a dot right on the middle of the back of your head, is it that point, that dot, that is resting on the floor? Or are you resting slightly to the left or the right side of that dot? If your head notably tipped more freely one way than the other, is it to that side of the dot that your head is resting here? And then bring your awareness to what sensations are showing up around your neck. So in this position, where does your awareness land when you think about your neck? Is it in the same parts as it was in standing? Or has it changed? And then we'll explore some movements of the head here. So if your legs are straight, go ahead and bend up your knees. And we're going to explore a different direction of movement to what we did up on our feet. And you choose which way you want to go first. So I'll describe the two directions and then go into the one you feel you want to start with. So your options are, you could tip your chin up to the ceiling as if you were trying to look to the wall overhead. Or you could lower your chin down towards your chest as if you were trying to peer down towards your knees. So go ahead and let your head roll whichever way. And whichever way you're rolling your head, notice which side of your neck is shortening and which side is lengthening. There'll be opposite things happening between front and back of neck. And whichever side has shortened, could you slowly release until you feel like your head is back at its resting spot. And then go ahead, tip that way again. Notice one side of your neck shortens, the opposite side lengthens. And is there any voluntary involvement lower down through your torso? Is there a response in your shoulders, your spine, your ribs? There may or may not be. And then release your neck to bring your head back to rest. And having explored that direction a couple of times, could you now go the other way? And feel how it's the opposite coordination between front and back of your neck. Does this feel as easy for you? And then notice where it has to lengthen and soften to return to rest. And as you explore that one more time, notice, is there any voluntary involvement or response Lower down through your torso. And then come back to rest. So now we're going to explore those movements with an intentional awareness and action of keeping our center deliberately still and tight. And we're kind of recreating what happens as we lose mobility in our center and we have more tension. So, in whatever way this works for you, could you tense and tighten your center? So, think belly, back, in whatever way works for you, almost as if you were bracing in the center. Now, don't let any of that move. Keep a hold of that and go ahead and tip your head up and down a couple of times. And notice the effect of holding tension in your center has on the comfortable movement of your head. Is your neck having to work harder here? Is the range of movement both ways different? And when you've explored that a couple of times, let everything soften. Give yourself a moment at rest. And then we're going to reverse it. So now we're going to explore movement in the center without moving the neck and head. So leaving your neck and head where it is, bring your focus to the middle part of your torso, this area where the lowest ribs meet the pelvis. And bringing your focus to the back of this area, your lower back, could you begin to sink and round your lower back into the ground? So feel your lower back smile and lengthen into the floor and deliberately sink and tighten your belly. And without moving your head, notice what this does to the feel of your neck. Holding your belly tight, keeping your head still. And then deliberately soften and melt your belly. Releasing that lengthening of your back. Coming back to rest. And then go ahead and explore that again. You're lengthening the lower back, deliberately tightening the belly. And can you feel how that moves your pelvis? Can you feel your pubic bones tip up in the direction of your navel? Notice how your neck and head feel in response to this. And then deliberately turn down the tension in your belly. Let everything soften. Now let's connect this movement of our flatten all the way up into our neck. In our design, in our function, there is a deep connection between our belly muscles and our neck muscles, but sometimes over time this connection gets lost and we can end up getting tension and stress in our neck. So let's remind our lovely system that it's connected. So go ahead and sink and tighten your belly. And in fact, let those ribs in your chest begin to sink down. You might notice your shoulders begin to roll forward. And as you do, go ahead and tip your chin up. It might already be happening. And feel that sinking of your breastbone, your belly as your chin tips up. How connected does this feel? And then soften your belly and notice the echo of that release. Can you feel it flow up through your chest, your neck, all the way to rest? And then the same pattern, let's explore it from the head down. So could you again begin to tip your chin up, feel the back of the neck arch and shorten? And notice if your head moves more freely as you let your shoulders round forward from the floor. Let them roll forward from the ground. Sinking your chest, sinking and tightening your belly. And then wherever you feel the deepest part of this contraction, could you release from there and follow that release with curiosity all the way out and beyond? When we reveal our true function again, that release will flow to all parts. To release one part is to release all. And then let's explore the opposite pattern. So without moving your head, bringing your focus to the back of your belt line, could you exaggerate the arch of your lower back, like you're picking the back of your belt line up from the floor? This time your belly is lifting and expanding. The effort is in the lower back muscles. Can you feel that? And as you arch your back but keep your head in place, notice how this feels for your neck and head. This is how it feels to be disconnected between our center and our head. And then melt your back. Like you're just taking your foot off the accelerator until it's no longer pressing. And then when you're ready, go ahead and arch again and notice how to contract your lower back is to move your pelvis. Can you feel your pubic bones roll in the direction of your feet now? That's the lower end of your spine. Let's connect to the upper end. Could you let your chin lower down towards your chest? This is a functional reflex pattern. And then as you melt the arch of your back, softening that effort till it's no longer there, notice how far that release flows. And then let's begin with either end of the spine in this next one. So imagine that your chin is connected by a rope to your pubic bones right down the center. And as that rope begins to be pulled towards your feet, your pelvis rolls to the feet, your head is going to follow. What has to happen in between your head and pelvis to let this flow? Can you feel your spine beginning to arch and your belly and chest lifting and widening? Go ahead and add that in and notice if that makes it easier. And wherever you feel your back arching the most clearly, release from that spot and feel how far the release flows freely. Does it get stuck anywhere? Could you keep it flowing? So we have this reflex pattern that involves an arch and tightening of the back, drawing head and pelvis to the feet. We have the opposite reflex pattern of tightening through the belly and chest and pelvis and head rolling towards the head end. What you might find, depending on where your stress has accumulated over time, is that one of these patterns is more familiar. So go ahead and explore one more of each of those in your own time. Noticing, does one seem to happen more freely, more easily? Which pattern have you got a little more stuck in over time? Taking your time for a breath at rest in between. And don't let my words rush you, but when you finish that last one, let yourself take a moment at rest for a soma scan. You could keep your knees bent or slide them on out, letting go of anything you don't need here and now. And what sensations, where in your felt sense are you noticing in this moment? Where does your focus and awareness land most freely, without effort? So the movements you've just explored are our green and red light reflex patterns. And because they are reflex patterns, the head moves in those ways you've just been experiencing. But there is also a different head pattern to the spine, where the head follows the curve of the spine. And throughout our life, we want to be able to keep exploring and freely and comfortably doing these two head patterns. So we're going to come into a different position to be able to explore this other head pattern that connects with our spine all the way down to our pelvis. And to explore this, we want to move ourselves away from the floor a little bit. So we're actually going to come onto hands and knees if that is comfortable and accessible. If it isn't, you could come into a seated position, either on the floor or in a chair.